I introduced 5 pieces of coral sinking wood into this 45H aquarium. I glued them together with the Imper superglue, the black colored Imper superglue, and I'm going to build a nature style aquarium in this tank. Stay with me, you're gonna love it. Welcome to the beautiful world of aquascaping. I love the 45H size because it looks much bigger than it really is in volume. It has 45 centimeters width, 45 centimeters height, and actually only 30 centimeters depth. See how cool it is when it's glued together? The goal is to cover everything with weeping moss from Tropica that I have here, and I have the Terra line from ADA, and that doesn't decompose underwater, so you can use it for a longer time. I want to cover this fully, but this one will stick out of the water, so at the top I will use the Terra tape. It needs to start below the waterline. The idea behind this is to bring up the moisture from the aquarium water and bring it up all the way above the water. See how long this weeping moss is? You can just put it, wrap it around this. If you have it too thick, then you're going to have a problem with it. It can rot. Do you guys remember the 450 build? The aquarium behind me with the discus right now? We tied moss on that for about like 2 days straight, the two of us. Aquascaping master class. This is the front that is facing me, so it's more important to have a uniform layer of moss on this side. I could add some Anubias and just have the Anubias wrapped around it. That will look good. If this were the front of the wood and you would put this in there and you would tie it on, you could see the bottom of it. Some people would love it and then you can use it, but I would prefer to put it a little bit behind the whole thing and then tie it like that. See what I mean? And then it looks much better from the front. Anubias is an epiphyte plant, okay? Mosses are also epiphyte plants. What does epiphyte mean? It means that it's a plant that does not need to be planted in a substrate. So that was actually one pot. You can see that I'm moving in bigger bunches of plants as I go towards the bottom. So this one is the biggest, this is the second biggest, and this is the smallest. So the more I move downwards, the bigger the plants are. That makes sense in the scale of things. These little pieces are just hanging out, so what I'm going to do is just to cut them, and all the loose ones are going to be, just going to get rid of. This is the goal, to keep the whole thing tidy with the maintenances. So the idea is to like trim everything that starts to grow out, and I want to prevent this from looking thicker than it is now. Not that easy to do inside the aquarium underwater with everything floating. Make sure that you spray these regularly like Aaron does right now. Thanks for the help, Aaron. Because if they dry out, it's going to be a trouble. So you see now what I mean by hiding the roots behind the branch. Okay, so one ready. 5 to go, which means that I will tie moss for the next 2 hours. This is the petrified wood stone. This is what I'm going to use under the tree. Not these big pieces though. I'm just using these big pieces to distance this. Okay, so second one is ready. It looks very natural, doesn't it? So now let's move on to the left side, these two branches. I have like 3 branches empty. This one, and probably the small one. Okay, I took this into the office and asked the guys, Tommy, Otti, Matty, and everybody else what they think about leaving this bare. So they thought that this looks good like that, and for me it also looks better because it reminds me of the bonsai, so like a gin on a bonsai tree. All that remains to be done is to do these 2 pieces, this one in the back and this one here. I'm thinking that I will use the Espeiras boras in this tank. We never used that. I don't think that we have it in any other tanks now, and I think that it's a nice classic fish that goes well with the nice classic look of this aquarium. And other than that, I'm going to probably use some shrimp to add some color to the otherwise green layout. Stick until the end to see how this whole thing looks finalized. Let's introduce it in the aquarium to see how it looks. I started adding some pieces of petrified wood stone, which is my favorite stone actually. It doesn't leach anything into the water, it doesn't change the water parameters. And I built a dam out of crushed smaller pieces. Again, the same thing happens with the stones as it happened with the wood. You cannot find one piece of wood or just one big piece of stone that would fit your layout. So you need to like construct the whole thing from smaller pieces. In the foreground I will have some kind of sand. I think Colorado will look good. It's more reddish, but the whole tank will be green. Let's use some fine filter mesh to cover the cracks so that the soil will not roll forward. Here comes the ADA substrate system. And why do they call that system? It's because it's composed of many different layers, and those layers will help you with filtration, those layers will help you with providing nutrification for the plant roots, and that is going to be, alongside the filtration, the basis of the ecosystem, the underwater ecosystem biological balance. Okay, and for that I'm going to use the ADA Power Sand Advanced S. The next step would be the general plant soil. And the general plant soil is something that is in contact with the water. That is where the top of the plant roots are going to go into, and then they're going to go down all the way to the base layer fertilizing substrate. Next step is the ADA Colorado sand. I'm trying to push everything back so that the foreground is very low, and that will help with the scale of the tank. It will increase this height even further. I've got like a lot of smaller pieces of petrified wood, and I will start adding a little bit of detail. That is going to help a little bit to add like a terrace. You can see that I can elevate it now much better to make a triangle composition out of the soil. Where do we want to put the Cyperus helferi, which is like a grass, like a long grass-like plant? For me, the right side is better. If I leave that side empty, and this whole thing is like moving a little bit the eye towards that side. But before we do that, we need to put something on the bottom. The Cuba is growing nicely here. I love that. And also I love those. So Glosso and Utricularia. If the Utricularia dies, which it shouldn't do, then the Glosso will take over. Yeah, let's do that. Mr. Amano has used that in one of the ADA tanks, and I loved it. You're not going to see anything because I need to plant very deeply, so that it disappears below the soil. It will just grow out of there. Next is Glossostigma. That is easier to plant. I will just stuck it in. I need a small crypt, small green crypt, which is Cryptoparva. I only use 3 pots of that. I don't want to overuse this plant, but it has a nice texture. It will serve as just point of interest here and there. Next one is the Helanthium tenellum green, which I know just as Echinodorus tenellus, which is the same plant, just name changes with time. And this is a mid-ground plant. I didn't use anything in here, so maybe just one pot of hairgrass. I will just use 1 pot of Eleocharis pusilla in the foreground. Next one, Cyperus helferi. This is the background plant. I am ready with the build, the hardscape, soil, plants, decoration sand. All that remains to be done is to think about filtration. I've got the new EHEIM Classic Vario filter in my hand. This is something that you've never seen before, guys. I think this is the first of its kind. Otherwise, it looks very good, doesn't it? Check this out. Nice and gray. This is a classic filter that has an electronic Wi-Fi connection. So this is already part of the EHEIM digital series. You don't have to restrict the flow with the tap. We are going to use a tap, but not for that, for maintenance. And you can just connect to Wi-Fi and make sure that you can restrict the flow by slowing down the rotation speed of the impeller. How cool is that? Okay, I'm removing the top. It looks like a classic filter. Here's the impeller inside of the whole thing. There's the input for the electricity in it, and then you've got the filter bucket right there, and then the filter media, which I'm going to replace, as we do replace it with all the tanks of green aqua. You turn it and then you can remove the top. There's the activated carbon filter. It's good for the beginning. There's the fine filter mesh as the last step of the filtration. I'm going to take out these pads, not needed, and going to replace it with CCAM matrix. The activated carbon will deplete after a couple of weeks, so you have to just take this out, otherwise it will leach stuff back into the water. But at the beginning it will help you with the filtration. The Purigen will come to the top of the filtration. You need to rinse this before you use it, so thank you, Matty, for rinsing it. There you go. The whole thing goes into the bucket. You can even hold it, plug it in. Thank you guys for staying here with me. Please do not go anywhere because we're going to show you how this thing looks, and I'm going to introduce the Espe rasbora in it. If you're new to the hobby, you can do something without CO2 injection, just with an internal filter. These kind of epiphyte plants, some mosses, the Anubias for sure, Marsilea hirsuta, Marsilea crenata, those can live without the CO2 injection. Just use some liquid carbon additives. But we have many tutorials on that, and with that, this video is done. Thank you so much. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.